Welcome back to the show. Today we have Grant Aldrich. He's the CEO and founder at OnlineDegreecom. Grant, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
I'm very well. Yourself?
I'm doing great.
Awesome, man. Oh, I'm excited to have you back on the show. You did the radio version a while ago, and I love what you guys are doing at OnlineDegreecom. But maybe before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yeah, I grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, which is a little small town outside of LA. And one of the things we're known for is we were where they filmed a lot of Hollywood movies because it's right next to Hollywood. So things like Bonanza and a bunch of other funny TV shows you may never have watched before.
That's awesome, man. So walk me through, you went to university. What did you take and why?
Yeah, so I took a very conventional path to college.
Okay.
And I took the path where you graduate from high school, you try to get into the best school you possibly can, and make it a stepping stone towards your career or whatever path you want to go. And so I graduated. I went to UC Irvine, which is a really good public school. I believe it's top 10 public school in the country.
Oh, wow.
And everything went great, graduated with a degree in economics, and I immediately went into startups. I just found a home. I loved it. Love working in startups. But I graduated with a lot of student debt. And years later, I would reflect on that, and that it left almost like a scar on me. It was just, you can't look back and not reflect on something that took you 8-9 years to pay off.
Yeah, fair enough. If not more, right? Sometimes it takes people more than that.
You're right. I mean, my gosh. I mean, some people have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and they never pay it off.
Yeah. Okay. So
I would say that my pathway was rather conventional from the college route.
Okay. So how did you come up with the idea of OnlineDegreecom, and what exactly is it?
Yeah, great point. So I've been lucky enough. I've exited a few startups in my career. I've been in startups for about 15 years. And I got to the point where I just wanted to do something that was great and that I would be really excited to come to work on and work on every day.
Sure.
Not to say that what I was doing in my previous life wasn't rewarding, but because, when you build a startup, there's a lot of rewarding aspects to it. But I was helping pharmaceutical companies, and nothing wrong with that, but it's not something where you get to wake up in the morning and feel like you're making a difference in the world.
Sure.
So in this case, I've always had a natural inclination to education. So I knew that was the field that I wanted to focus on for a few reasons. One was my experience with debt. I even took a lot of pathways that you would have thought would have lowered my debt. I took a bunch of courses, like AP courses in high school. My mom was a guidance counselor, so she helped me take courses at junior college. So that basically when I went to school, I had a year completed. And even then, still, I graduated with all that debt from a public school tuition.
Wow.
And then, so that I think I wanted to try to solve. And then the other piece was that my family has all been in education, so I really liked it. But, the aha moment really happened when I was talking with my wife, and I was talking about education and what would be, how do we solve this? And she nailed it. She said, we're so fortunate that, she was speaking it from herself. She said, we're so fortunate that as a single mom or a stay-at-home mom, that I can be at home and if I want to go and explore courses and do all these things, I have the flexibility. But what about a single mom who, cost is a factor, that they don't have the schedule. You've got a crying baby. You've got, you can't go to class every day. And I'm like, wow, you nailed it. That's not just a problem for a single mom. That's a problem that affects every working adult in America, right? We can't just go leave our jobs in the middle of the day to go back to school or, take this giant leap to, go into all this debt for a degree. So that was the genesis of OnlineDegreecom.
Interesting. Okay. So what exactly is OnlineDegreecom, and how are you guys changing education?
Yeah. So the whole mission behind it is that we try to help everyone get their freshman year of college for free. And the goal being that we want to try to make college as accessible and affordable for everybody. And so the way that it works is that you can get started on our platform, 60 seconds, no entrance exams, no applications, no cost. It's all free. You get started taking as many college level courses as you want. We've got some really great courses on robotics and computer science and accounting, criminal justice. And as you take the courses, we've worked out articulation or credit pathways with universities across the country so that you can earn credit for the courses you're taking. So you take the course, complete the course, and there are pathways for credit to 1,400 universities across the country.
Wow. Okay. So walk me through that a little bit, because you gotta get people that are skeptical, because usually when something's free or sounds too good to be true, it's, well, too good to be true, right? But yeah, you guys are genuinely doing this for free, that people can actually get this done. So walk us through that and tell us more about that.
Yeah, I know, you're right. That's usually the most common question we get is, how can this be free? And I love hearing that, by the way, because it was engineered from the very beginning. So the way that, well, I'll start with this. It had to be free. I looked at it and I said, look, the only way we're going to impact real change, help as many people as possible, is it has to be free. I want anybody to be able to break their current mold. Just, hey, why don't I just try taking a few courses and then get hooked on that learning itch and then get back to school. So, and cost, of course, is a big impediment to that. So I want to remove that. So if you're going to make it free, what are you going to do? So I took a page out of open source software's playbook where you make it free for everybody, and then you pay for it through enterprise relationships with different companies. And in this case, for us, it's the universities.
Gotcha.
So we've been able to completely make it free and at the same time provide a really great education, not sacrifice the quality, and and through our relationships with the schools, pay for everything.
Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So I go to OnlineDegreecom. I complete enough courses to transfer to a university. How does that process work? And then I guess, how do you guys monetize that, right?
Yeah, great question. So let's say you sign up for the first time, and I'm going to make this up. Let's say you're interested in a business degree.
Sure.
So you get started, and as you sign up, you can start enrolling whatever classes you like. We've also got advisors that can help you for free, or you can chat with on our platforms to give you that extra help. And then what you may do is you may look at all the different schools that we work with and plan out a pathway to one.
Okay.
And so, for example, I'll give you one is, we've got a partnership with Colorado State.
Okay.
Where, and this is indicative of lots of schools, but I'll just use them as an example.
Sure.
So you can take up to, with our 15 courses, you can complete somewhere like 25 to 30% of your degree with us tuition free.
Wow.
And then when you enroll, you get another 10% discount from Colorado State. So effectively lowering your total cost of education by 30 to 40%. It's incredible. I mean, we look at like ways that we can combat student debt. This is a fantastic way, and we've done it just through creative partnerships and no taxpayer dollars. And so you're able then to take the courses, work with them, get your transcript, and enroll directly to the school. The way that we make money is that we work with universities in a couple different regards. One of it is that we work with universities on a recruitment basis, so that if let's say if a university really wants to focus on this program that they want to fill, like, hey, we've got a really cool robotics program, we'll let them advertise in the platform. And if students are interested, they can get more information. And if not, they can continue on whatever path they choose. And then the other cool thing we do is that I think we're really going to solve the retention problem in the U.S. So most people who listen to this show, or the layperson, doesn't realize that keeping people in college is just as hard as getting them to college.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Right. It's kind of one of those problems that no one talks about or is aware of. But I'll give you a scenario that'll make sense. You're a working adult. You're working hard. You've got you're going back to school, and all of a sudden you've got a crisis in your life. Anything, right? You fall behind a little bit. You're not going to let the debt clock continue to accrue at that university, right? You just can't afford it. We can't amortize debt like we could in our 20s. You're very sensitive to that. So what do? You drop out. And the sad thing is when you drop out, it's a very hard break. People feel a lot of shame, and they typically never come back. But what we offer now, and we're working with a lot of institutions on, is that, hey, we all get it. You've got this crisis in your life. Instead of completely cutting ties, go to OnlineDegreecom, keep taking courses towards your degree with them. It's all tuition free. And then once you're, so, you know, from like an emotional standpoint and from a morale, hey, you're not breaking, you're not leaving, you're just taking courses there. You can pick up back with us right when you weather the storm. It's really neat.
Interesting. Okay. So walk me through how that kind of works then from a university's perspective. Like, why would they want to partner with somebody like you? You mentioned the retention side, which I didn't really think about, but give us the rationale behind why they would want to basically only let theirs or some of their students only do kind of the back half or 3/4 of their degree actually paid at their university.
It's a great question. I think first, it's a model that they're very accustomed to with community colleges. So I think that there is, even in like the previous world before we launched, that there are students who are not exactly ready to jump into a 4-year institution for whatever reason. Could be cost,
Sure.
could be they're not just ready to get into that kind of rigor, and
Okay.
that they need another pathway. And universities are very accustomed to, again, supporting that. Hey, great, 2-year, you come in, and they look at it as if we wouldn't have gotten that student otherwise. So it's okay that they complete 2 out of the 4 years with them. And
Interesting.
really, we're no different, except we're doing something far more grand in that there are millions, tens and tens of millions of working adults who are not taking that step to go back to school. And they're not at a time when the demand to go back and get new skills to make their lives better is really at an all-time high. I mean, how many industries are losing jobs because of globalization, automation? I mean, look at Ford and GM. They're cutting all of these factories across the country right now. I mean, this is going to continue to happen. And so the demand to go back to school is so high. Well, how do we get them to take that first step? And so I think that they look at us as truly increasing the pie, bringing more people who should be going back to school and helping them do it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I also think too that so many people probably now that, well, it's starting to happen more and more courses are becoming online and you can actually get credits for them. It probably, you're going to see a lot more people in their 30s, 40s, maybe even older than that, actually go back to school part-time or in the evening because of what you guys are doing, right?
You nailed it. Yeah. I mean, online is the future. There's no doubt about it. And I think what you just touched on is that the flexibility coupled with online is the future. So, when we went to school, or, you think of, okay, if I'm going to go online, one, that's really kind of an interesting concept, but it mirrors what it was like when I went to school at a traditional campus. Like, oh, I've got class from Wednesdays at 4 to 5 and I got to be there. No, I mean, it's totally evolving. It's, there's a lot of universities very avant-garde where everything's on your schedule. So like, to your point, not only would I be able to do it totally online from home, but it'll also be on my own schedule. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, right? Because I think people almost demand that, and you're opening up a whole new market segment that's been untapped for years, right?
That's it, right? There's this group of people that have just been
Interesting.
underserved. And you know where they've been seeing it is we've seen it with their feet. College enrollments were going down, and
Right.
Higher education alternatives like boot camps or other places to learn how to code or something like that were climbing. And so I think that people have spoken with their feet. So now I think that, no, this has really leveled the playing field, because no one would argue that a boot camp certificate is better than a 4-year degree. I mean, studies after studies show that if you're going for a job, a 4-year degree is going to help your chances more. But at what cost, right? And so people weren't willing to take that step. And I think now with us, you can go to OnlineDegreecom and totally level that playing field and really make it feasible to go back and do it.
Interesting. So I'm curious to cover a little bit. How did you actually get OnlineDegreecom built? Because there's a huge amount of things that you need to do and build all the courses almost before you can launch. Fair to say?
Oh yeah, in hindsight, this was a very big endeavor for me and the most complex I've ever done. It's
Sure.
very true. Yeah, I don't know if I'm bold or brazen, but maybe both.
Sure.
It was very complex because when if you're going to create courses that are going to be equivalent to the college level, they actually have to be under the same par. So they have to be the same rigor. They've got to be the same, all these different aspects that would make the course acceptable to a university to accept. So it took, for all of the startup people in the world who are all big fans of, the rapid prototyping model, they're going to balk at this, but it did. It took 2 years to get off the ground for the first prototype. And the reason is that to get all of the courses developed, to then get all of the different recommendations and standardizations and peer reviews and all that stuff, it takes a lot of work, and you really couldn't offer it before you had all those pieces in place. It just it wouldn't be a realistic test. But the good news is that now that it's up and we launched fully in July, it's just taken off. I mean, we're adding now thousands of students per month. It's really, it's been incredible, and it's just
congrats, man. That's great.
A lot of credit to the model. Yeah, thank you.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess the other thing too, I always struggled. I've always lived outside of the Valley, just for some context, but I've always struggled with the people that are like, you can only do it this way, or you just don't even bother. And it's like, well, what works for you might not work for somebody else, because everybody's situation is completely different, for better or worse, and everything in between, right? And if it takes 2 years to launch a startup, like, what are you going to do? You can't do anything about it. Obviously, if you could have done it in 6 months or 6 weeks to get a thing up there and online, you would have done it, right? So I never really understood why some people would say that when they don't really understand all the complexities and things that happen behind the scenes that nobody will know about, right? Until somebody like you actually mentions, well, if it took me 6 months to get one thing from one university, what am I going to do about that? Like, you don't have a choice. Like, is that kind of what you're getting at with that?
Yeah, you and I totally see eye to eye on this when we've spoken about the fact that the Valley, for when choosing startups, and by saying choosing, that could be funding startups or promoting startups or whatever that is, it actually is a fairly rigid, narrow model that the Valley adheres to or goes by. It's kind of incredible, right? Like to your point, you've got to make they want certain models, business models. They want you to be able to take capital at certain stages and be able to get to market far faster. All these things that, they may not fit your particular model. And I think that's sad, because then only the companies that fit that model are the ones that get funded and have the chance. And what about the other ones that don't?
Totally. But I also think too that you talk to so many companies sometimes that they're pretending to follow that model, but they actually don't really follow that model. It's just on paper they do, right? Like, a lot of startups won't tell you that they still do contract work and client work while they're building their startup. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But nobody will say that because you're not like successful, or you're doing something wrong. But it's like, if you can get something from nothing to live, and you can start attracting users, that's a huge accomplishment. And however you need to get there, like, who can judge that, in my opinion, right?
Oh, I agree. You're right. You see, the success kind of speaks for itself, and that success could be adoption or how well you've done. I agree. Funny that you bring this up. Last night I was listening to a podcast from Active Campaign's founder, Jason Vanderbloom. And I guess what was fascinating about his story was just how you described. I get, when they had to weather the financial crisis, they had to take on consulting work just to survive. Yeah. And then he also is amazing that they didn't take up a bunch of startup or funding or startup capital. They took one loan at one point when the business was well established, and then now he's created just a behemoth. They've got 350 employees, I think like 50 million in revenue or something of that effect. And yeah, they didn't take that traditional path. As you said.
I know, and like I think the other thing that the analogy that's always stuck with me, because everything seems to be a sports metaphor, but I found one that I really like that's not a sports metaphor. It's like, are you going to tell Jimi Hendrix that he couldn't have played guitar with his thumb? Like, no, sorry, like you're not going to do that, right? But like technically, that's wrong.
And thank you for not using a sports metaphor. I know, does every metaphor have to be a sports one? Oh my gosh, that's a good one. You're right. Yeah, how can you? No, I would never put myself on Jimi Hendrix's level, but yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, I think there's just like people that break the mold, and there's reasons for doing the things that people do, and we're so quick to judge them on, oh, it took 2 years to get your startup. Like, what are you doing? It's like, well, you don't really understand, right? So I think the thing is, for me, it's just trying to have people like you that are open to talking about why they did the things that they did, and trying to break down some of those barriers to tell people that, like, look, you could be successful if it took you 2 years. Like, you guys are gaining thousands of users a month. You've onboarded a ton of universities. You're successful at this, right? And sure, it took you 2 years to get there, but who cares?
Yeah, you're right. And it's a fear, because when you go online, I mean, it's groupthink in terms of the articles and things you read. But you're right. At the end of the day, all that matters is, are your customers happy? And they don't care about any of the things that we're talking about. That the student who gets to use my site, for example, doesn't care, or someone who's used ActiveCampaign doesn't care. So I think you're right. I think we get far too worked up on what the experts or critics, have to say, when, hey, any path could lead you there.
Yeah, no, I think it's actually really good advice, right? Because I think the weird thing I've always found with like the critic type people is, like, how do you even become a critic? Like, what gives you the right to criticize other people? Like, there are some people that have genuinely done a handful of things, but I find the more successful somebody's actually been, the more helpful and less critical those people actually are of other people, because they understand that it's not as simple as just like A to B to C to, it just doesn't really work like that. So I don't know. I love the fact that you openly talk about this stuff and the honesty of bringing and onboarding some of these, your project, right?
Yeah, well, thank you. And honestly, when I look at it, when I think back and I'm reflecting on the experience, yeah, I'm super excited about all the things that have happened. But when I look back, I really just look at, wow, all of the adversity and problems that we overcame. And, people like to include those in like their stories as part of, oh, well, of course, you can't have a good story without overcoming something. But no, I mean it more in the sense that so much goes wrong. You do so many things wrong. It's just really you're a walking disaster many times. Totally. Only guided by a good idea or a mission or whatever it is that's guiding you. And that's the reality of it. It's very unglamorous in many times. It's just a lot of grit.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's like the other thing is, you feel like a failure almost daily, multiple times a day for months or weeks or years sometimes, right? And just to keep going is some days like hard enough, never mind all the other stuff you have to deal with.
Well, so actually, interestingly, you brought that up. When I started Online Degree, again, this is not my first rodeo. I've had a few startups, and because I've had a few, I know better, right? I know what to expect. And so before I did it, I actually wrote myself a letter. I know that sounds kind of maybe cheesy.
No, man, I think that's great.
Right? But I did. I wrote myself like a really deep letter, because right before we launched, and I covered all the things, knowing myself on what would bother me and what would worry me. And I wrote, and I honestly reflect on that letter constantly. I look up at it. It's in my office, and I reflect on it constantly, because one of the things one aspect of the things I covered in that letter is that you're going to wake up scared every morning. And I mean scared in the sense that you're letting someone down, or you're, something broke and people aren't happy, things that seems silly that you carry all that in your shoulders, but you do.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the game.
Totally. But Grant, I wish we had more time, but let's close the show with mentioning where people can get more information about you, and any other links you want to mention.
Yeah, thank you. So we've got a new scholarships and discounts section, which is really cool, an online degree. So obviously, someone who's interested, OnlineDegreecom or OnlineDegreecom/scholarships. And for me personally, I interact primarily through LinkedIn. So, definitely look me up, and would love to talk to any of the listeners on the show.
Perfect, man. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking the time in your day to be on the show, and have a good rest of your day, man. And we'll talk soon.
Kevin, good as always. Thanks again for having me.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Okay.